So, the time apparently is flying because next week is already Palm Sunday. And in 2 weeks, Easter. So we will be celebrating Easter in 2 weeks. So time is just, as I said, the Lent looks very long, but it goes really fast. Actually, speaking of time, I remember once upon a time I was in the Caribbean and I was waiting for something to happen, and then this gentleman comes to me and he says to me, "Hi, I'm John, the fisherman. What are you doing here?" And I said, "Well, I'm just waiting here. I'm killing some time." And he says to me, "What did the time did to you that you have to kill it now?" Right? We say things about time, right? Time didn't do anything to me. But anyway, time flies. But anyway, so time flies, so let's focus on the message of today because it's quite interesting and important. And I would like to start with the first reading from Jeremiah. Because in Jeremiah we are learning that God is changing his mind. But he's changing his mind in a particular way because he says that, he has made a covenant with Moses on Mount Sinai by giving Moses and the Israelites the 2 tablets of the 10 Commandments. And we know that right after he gave those 2 tablets with the 10 Commandments, when Moses came down from the mountain, they were already worshiping a cow, right? Yeah, we know that. So now God realizes that didn't really go very far. So now he's changing his attitude and he says, now I'm going to give you a new covenant. But unlike the 10 Commandments that were written, where they were chiseled out in the stone, and they were chiseled out in the stone so that it would last forever, because nothing can destroy stone, right? That's what they thought. Because if you write it on paper, that can be burned very easily. Stone is a different thing. God is saying, now I'm changing my attitude. I'm not going to be writing anything in stone or on paper. I'm going to write my covenant in your heart. Right? So you don't even have to go far to look for it, to read it. If you don't know how to read, that's not the problem for you, because now it's in your heart. You can get there. You don't have to go anywhere. Right? So it's in your heart. Just go inside of you, you'll find it. So let's keep that heart thing in our attention. Let's put a pin on the heart. We were actually singing also the responsorial psalm, "Create a clean heart for me," right? So let's put a pin on the heart, or rather, #heart, right? We're going to come back to it in a second. So let's just move to the gospel, because it's quite interesting too. This is John's Gospel, but interestingly enough, I said that we will be celebrating Palm Sunday next Sunday, but that Gospel reading, actually happened during Palm Sunday. What I'm trying to say is that Jesus just made this big, fantastic entrance into Jerusalem. Everybody knows that. And now the discussion that you see over there is during that Palm Sunday, right after Jesus drove in, on the top of a donkey inside of the city of Jerusalem, which must have been a huge thing, because normally people don't go like this. Nobody walks in and then people say, "Hosanna, Hosanna, Hosanna," right? So if you want to have some kind of a comparison, if you remember the Super Bowl, right, a couple of weeks ago, right, some people were wondering, was it about football or was it about Taylor Swift? Because so much about Taylor Swift at the Super Bowl, because she's made so many waves over there. So imagine kind of a Super Bowl thing minus Taylor Swift 2,000 years ago in Jerusalem. So Jesus walks in, or drives into the city of Jerusalem, and everybody's paying attention. What is he? Why is he coming like this? What is this whole story about him? Because something is special about him. So now, as we just heard in the beginning of today's story, Greeks are coming to the apostles. To be honest with you, they were not really Greeks. They were people living in the north part of Israel. This area is called Decapolis, meaning 10 cities. And they were heavily influenced by the Greeks. And they were interested in many religions. There were no atheists or agnostics in times of Jesus Christ. everybody believed in something or in someone, in some kind of a god. And if you remember from your history classes, in Greece, people believed in many gods, right? All the gods lived on the top of the Mount Olympus, right? And there were stories about those gods. But what was really interesting also about Greece was that they had many gods, and morality had nothing to do with religion. So you could have been a terrible person, but you could say, well, I have a great faith. One had nothing to do with the other. Don't forget, in ancient Greece, they even had temple prostitutes. That's what they did, right? So morality didn't matter at all. Faith was a completely different thing. Now, Judaism was the first religion, so Jews were the first ones who said, not only that are we going to have only one God, not many gods, just one God, but besides that, we have certain rules and regulations, and we have 613 of them. So you have to behave in a particular way. You cannot just say, oh, my morality has nothing to do with faith. No, it has everything to do with faith. Going back to those Greeks, or the Greek-influenced people. So they were intrigued by that, right? Wow, only one God? And morality actually matters? They were interested, they were intrigued. They wanted to know more. And because Passover was a huge feast in Jerusalem, they used to come there, also because of cultural reasons, just to watch it, just to see it, because it's fantastic, right? But they didn't really want to go all the way to become Jews, right? Because they didn't want to get circumcised. They were just kind of, maybe not, I don't know, maybe sometime, maybe, let's see, right? Just like some of the Catholics, right? We call them CEO Catholics, right? CEO, meaning Christmas and Easter only, right? CEO, Christmas and Easter only, right? So these were probably PO Jews, like Passover only Jews, right? POJs or whatever, right? So they're there, they're observing that, and now they are coming to the apostles, and this is not an accident. They are coming to Philip. And then Philip goes to Andrew, and Philip and Andrew then finally go to Jesus. Why? Because Philip is a Greek name, and so is Andrew. So these were Greek names. So imagine, for example, that there's 12 apostles, and 2 of them are from Ghana. Who do you go to? Right? Right? Those 2 that are from Ghana, right? So it's the same situation, right? So they are going to those whose names sound Greek because they are Greek names. And they're coming and then saying, well, we want to meet with Jesus. Nothing strange about it, right? But look at what Jesus' reaction to it is. Normally, if somebody would come and say, hey, I want to meet with Jesus, or I want to meet with you, or something, okay, I'm going to be right there, we're going to talk, we're going to get to know each other, let's see what's going to happen, right? Jesus' reaction, or Jesus' answer to it, is completely different. He doesn't say, I'm going to be right there, we're going to talk about it, yeah, I'm glad I'm going to meet them. He says, well, unless, you die, you're just going to be a grain of wheat. But if you die, you're going to produce much fruit. Unless you hate your life in this world, you're not going to have life. What is this reaction? What's this answer? In a sense, he's changing a subject. But he's not really changing a subject. Actually, Jesus has done it many times before. For example, at one point, he was walking with the apostles, and they were quarreling, and they were discussing who was going to be the greatest out of all of them, the 12 of them. And they finally came to the point of destination, and then Jesus says, what have you been talking about on the way? And they were like, yeah, well, whatever, right? They didn't want to say. And he says, well, you were talking about who wants to be the greatest in the kingdom of God. And he says, I'm going to tell you what's the answer to the question. And he takes a child, and he places a child in the midst, and he says, unless you become like this child, you're not going to be great, right? He's not changing the subject, although it sounds like that. But he's bringing them to a different way of understanding what it means to be great, or what it means to really understand certain things, right? Just like I sometimes preach at, how do we call it? The baptism, that they call it, baptism, right? So I preach at baptisms that, for example, when you take 2 babies, right? They're close, one to another. One baby and another baby. And if one of the babies starts to cry, you know what's going to happen with the other one, right? It's going to cry too, right? We don't know why it's happening. They don't know each other. They never spoken to one another. Obviously, they are just babies. But once of them cries, the second one, I'm influenced. I cannot be without reacting to it, and I'm going to cry too. They are probably on the same Wi-Fi or something. Something happens that they are connecting, right? That's all they need to know, that somebody is suffering, so I'm suffering too. I don't see any difference between me and the other one. I want to be connected. So those, going back to the gospel, so those weeks are coming, and they say, we want to meet Jesus. In other words, we want to see Jesus. I'm going to speed it up, because they don't know it just yet, but what they're trying to say is, we want to see God. Right? They don't know that Jesus is God yet, right? But we want to see God. Now, I mentioned to you, #heart, right? Because there is one of the 8 Beatitudes that says something about that, right? It says, blessed are those of clean heart, as we just sang it, for they will see God. In other words, if you really want to see God, you have to clean your heart. Or you have to have a clean heart. Now, what does it mean to have a clean heart? Not that we are polluting our hearts. Well, maybe we do sometimes when we, for example, sin, right? We pollute our hearts. And again, don't forget, God has written His commandment, His covenant in our heart, right? That's what it connects to. So how do we pollute or make dirty our hearts? Well, not only by our sins, but sometimes by our way of looking at things, right? That might be detrimental. For example, I'm going to give you a couple of ideas. Politically, if I'm a Democrat, and if I'm looking at somebody who is Republican, I hate you. Right? Because you're a Republican. I may know nothing about that person, but you're a Republican. I have to hate you, right? Because you're not in my group. You're not in my party, right? Or sometimes, somebody says something about someone, it's like, oh, I don't like you already. Why? Because somebody said something bad about you. I may not know nothing about that person, but I'm already have an attitude that I don't like you. Or maybe somebody's making more money than me. I hate you. Because you're making more money than me, right? Or maybe you're looking better than me, or maybe you're smarter than me, or maybe you are bothering me all the time. I hate you, right? So it's not that he or she has done something, but we already have the attitude, I don't want to talk to you because you're making more money, or you're smarter, or better looking, or whatever it is. And Jesus says, well, if you want to see God, you have to clean your heart. So what does it mean? Well, cleaning heart means that you have to come to the point finally that you're beginning to realize that people around you are not people who are your competitors, are not people to make your life miserable, but actually people around you are a reflection of God because they are brothers and sisters. We read it in Matthew's Gospel in 25th chapter. I say it almost every week, right? When Jesus is going to come at the end of times, He's going to say, when I was hungry, did you give me something to eat, right? And those people were saying, but when did we see you hungry? When did we see you, thirsty? We didn't, because you didn't see me. You didn't have a clean heart. You were looking at other people, you were thinking about them, whatever you were thinking about them, but you didn't see God in you. You didn't see me in them, right? Which means that your heart wasn't clean. Because you saw other things in us, right? So we have to do, my brothers and sisters, for lack of a better term, some spring cleaning here, right? It's necessary, right? I take care of one of elderly priests, Father Walker is his name. He's 85, and he has dementia. So his short memory is gone, right? So I keep talking to him, and he keeps asking the same questions over and over and over again. Such as, for example, so why don't I live in my house? Because you don't want to drive anymore. Oh, that's right. And 5 minutes later, why don't I live in my house? Because you don't want to drive anymore. Oh, that's right. And it was like new discovery, as if he never heard it before, right? So he doesn't remember any of that. And I think that in the spiritual sense, we need to kind of suffer from some kind of a dementia, right? Because what happens to us is actually that we remember quite well everything what happened and everything what other people did to us, right? And we keep it this way, that, for example, somebody does something wrong to me, I take that, right? For example, you said something bad to me, so I take it, I open my closet, I put it there, I shut it off. Sometime later, the person again does something bad to me. Hey, listen, hold on a second. Remember that? We weaponize that. We use it as weapons instead of forgiving, instead of giving a new chance and moving on. We take all those things, right? We have labeled that for all those people that they've done something wrong to me, and we shove it in their faces, right? Sometimes we cannot forget or forgive, and that's why Jesus says we have to have a clean heart, meaning let's sweep it off. Let's take all the labels off. Let's forget one another. That's why we are supposed to do daily examination of conscience at the end of the day. It's like, okay, I did something, or I could have done something wrong to someone. I forget, or maybe I need to forgive someone who hasn't been the best to me. Tomorrow is another day. I want to start from fresh. The Buddhists call it beginner's mind, as if you were born every single day anew. And you don't remember any of that, right? Or my dog, for example, right? When I come back home, he's always happy, right? He doesn't stay there like, hey, I remember what you did to me yesterday. I'm not going to be nice to you. I'm not going to be wagging my tail to you because you were nasty to me. He's always happy, right? And then sometimes I'm wondering, and I'm learning so much from you, Pino, because you're teaching me how to forget those things, right? That's what cleaning of the heart means, right? And if you clean your heart, you're beginning to see God. Because if you don't clean your heart, what you see is maybe some imagination of God, maybe a projection of who God is. You might be even thinking, oh, I see God. No, that's all your imagination or projection. Unless you clean your heart, remove all the obstacles, remove all the dust that is there, that is making it impossible to see God, because you see everything else but God. And you still may believe, oh, I'm such a, close friend to God. Really? Right? So I think we have quite a few things to be done in those last 2 weeks, if not for the rest of our lives, because we want to really see God. We want to, and once you do that, you see your brothers and sisters, and you see that whatever you're doing to God, and actually you also see that whatever I do to you that is good, you're not getting it from someone, you're getting it from God. You're beginning to understand it and appreciate that. Right? That's what clean heart means. That's what seeing God means. So my brothers and sisters, as we are coming together just 2 weeks before the feast of Easter, as we are looking deep down on things that we have done and others have done to us, let us ask God to give us the grace of being able to do some spring cleaning, to clean our hearts, to be able to see God and to serve our brothers and sisters, not as people only, but also as God in our midst. And may God bless us in this task. God bless us.